for the hardest hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
Welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
I'm Katy Steele.
Jack Prince is off this week. He is in South Dakota at the reservations out there, distributing clothing to the indigenous tribes, which is something that he does at least a couple of times a year. He hasn't been able to get out there lately, though, because of COVID. So hopefully Jack will be returning in the next week or two. Yeah. In the meantime, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of COVID news to talk about. Before we get started, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and WOOL in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Oh, boy. Well, the COVID keeps raging, and now Idaho is starting to ration health care. We'll get into some of the more serious issues involving COVID. I mean, it's all serious, but you wanted to start talking about Nicki Minaj and the absolute, complete, ridiculous claim that, what was it? Her cousin's friend,
somebody she supposedly knew, got the vaccine. Supposedly, after they got the vaccine, their swelled up.
Yeah, they had their testicles swelled, and rendered them impotent. Supposedly.
Which, okay, let's start out with regular advice, general life advice. If you're looking for somebody to get general life advice from, I'm guessing I don't have to tell you to take Nicki off the top of your list. Maybe move her down a little bit. If you're actually specifically looking for medical advice, she should not be on your list. Mm-hmm. Do not take medical advice from Nicki Minaj.
Yep.
With that being said, now we have to go, okay. Well, okay, I guess I should tell the rest of the story, because supposedly the health department, and this is a fact, the health department went and investigated these claims.
In Trinidad and Tobago,
yes.
which are islands in the Caribbean.
So their health department investigated the claims, and they're saying it was a waste of time for them to investigate. Now, I got a couple of issues with the way that all plays out, right? Number one, you're a health department. Mm-hmm. So you should be investigating whether or not there was a link from this to this if somebody has said that they specifically personally are having an issue, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned that they would go investigate somebody else's claims versus,
Now that's a very good point.
Now you're sending somebody to somebody who supposedly said something and it got back to somebody else, and now you've got the health department at your door wanting to know about your balls. Okay. I got a little bit of an issue with that part of it. I think that's kind of strange. They're not in America, so I'm not going to get into a conversation about what their laws are, whatever. Yeah. But that's one issue if this is a thing we're going to do when people make wild claims. The other issue is that a lot of people say a lot of really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And if you're talking about something medical and you say, I think this happened or that happened, and so I think it's because of this, you have every right to have that opinion, right? Mm-hmm. And you might be completely stupid wrong. And it could be dangerous for somebody to take your advice. But you're not making them take your advice. You're stating your opinion, which I think is the line here that people need to understand. And it is scary because when I hear her respond to this situation, she came out and she said, I can't even talk anymore. And she's right. I mean,
No, she can talk. She just doesn't want to hear criticism.
I don't know that she doesn't want to hear criticism. I mean, she definitely hears a lot of it. And she tends to make a good amount of headlines off of her response to criticism. So I think what it comes down to is she's scared of a government authority investigating her. I would be. You got to be careful about, I mean, you can't come out and say, if you're the president of the United States, you shouldn't tell people to drink bleach. This
or shove a UV light up your anus.
I think should be investigated, right? When you are in a position of authority over an amount of people and you're telling them to do something dangerous, this is a violation of somebody else's right to peace and sovereignty and just living
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. But it's a different situation when you're Nicki Minaj and you're stating your opinion. So that's what it comes down to for me. And I think that a lot of people are calling for things to happen.
But who's got more influence though in the society? I don't think
it necessarily matters. It's about who has more power, official power.
Well, we could substitute the word influence with power because she does have a powerful voice.
When I'm talking about official power, I'm talking about the government. He has actual government authority. So our government agencies should investigate him. She does have it. She has no government authority. She has no real actual authority, no power, no official power. Is she influential? Yes. But just being influential, is that enough to now give you a responsibility of researching before you open your mouth, and not just researching, but confirming and, because you should still be able to think something, even if you don't know for sure, and say it out loud, right?
Well,
and even
one thing I've preached on this show since day one in May of 2012 is I'm going to tell the truth on this show. If I don't know the truth, I'm not going to say anything about it. Because I tell you what, I can make a claim about somebody and it not be true. Guess what happens? I get sued for libel because I spoke it or published it. If I said it on the air, then it's considered slander because it's spoken word. So that's not protected speech whatsoever, because there are consequences to it. So if I'm going to make a claim, I'm going to do a little bit of research into it and see what I'm going to see what other better equipped researchers have said about this, because I'm not a doctor.
That's what I would do too. But that's our prerogative, right? Based on who we want to be and our character. And I think that's what it comes down to is, are we in a place now where people are pushing to police people's character? And how far is that from ideology?
Well, I'm worried about the pendulum swinging the other way, and what Jack and I have talked about the last couple of episodes, which is we've fallen into the movie Idiocracy. Life is now imitating art. Have you seen the movie?
I think I have, but keep going.
This is the movie. Two people are supposed to be part of a military experiment where they are put in cryogenic freeze for a year and then they're revived a year later. Instead, they're forgotten about. 500 years later, they wake up in the future and it's run by dumb people.
Okay.
You've got to see that movie. Maya Rudolph is in it. She's fantastic.
I'll definitely check it out.
But basically, at this point, the president of the United States is some sort of a former pro athlete, celebrity, pseudo celebrity. Gee, kind of sounds a little bit like Donald Trump. This is where we've gone. We're starting to emulate the movie Idiocracy. As Jack was saying, the smart people are saying, oh no, we got to hold off on having children, while Mr. Redneck up in my area where I grew up is nailing every cheerleader he can get in the backseat of his pickup truck or whatever. But like I said, you got to see the movie. It's
now that's got me a little messed up, because I don't really believe that we're overpopulated. I think we're using too many resources individually.
Nah, we're definitely way overpopulated. Back in the 50s, they would get on television. The government would get on television and say, quit having babies.
That's the thing, though. They were giving us propaganda then, and they're giving us the same propaganda now. The ancient civilizations were way bigger than they say they were. They had close to the amount of people on the planet that we have. They just didn't destroy it.
Yeah. Here's the issue, though. And you're right. We have been using resources way too much. I just think that, we have on one hand, in the 1950s, the government saying, "Oh no, you population control." But now we have the Republican Party, violent conservatives, whatever you want to call them, no birth control, no abortions, no nothing. So it's like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Do you know how they do it? They made up a new word.
And that word is?
Sustainability. They build all of their programs based on sustainability, which is population control. And then they preach to get rid of abortion and birth control.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're doing what they want to do. They're still depopulating.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you, I was going to ask you, have you heard about Howard Stern and his comments about vaccinations?
I haven't yet.
Oh boy. Should I go ahead and play you the first clip? This was from a week ago. We played it on last week's show. I'll do that. Let me get it loaded up here. The first clip's going to run about 1:44. This is Howard Stern on his Sirius XM radio show, his first day back from vacation, blasting anti-vaxxers. This is wild stuff coming out of Howard Stern's mouth. Take a listen.
When was it?
But
yesterday?
It's really funny
last
when
week.
the radio guys are the best. Like 4 of them died. 4 of them who were like ranting on the air, they will not get vaccinated. They were on fire, these guys. It was like day after day. They were all dying. And then their dying words are, "I wish I had been more into the vaccine. I wish I had taken it."
I have trouble drumming up compassion, and I think that's a terrible thing, to not be able to drum up compassion for people that stupid that they wind up dying.
Where do I have that clip of that Mark Bernier guy? Bernier, the guy who died. Oh, I got it. Here it is. This is the guy, I'm not getting the vaccine. But that's the guy who died.
That's a great question, and we were going to talk about that as far as the vaccine goes. What about you?
Yeah.
I'm not taking it.
Come on.
Are you kidding me, Mr. Anti-Vax? Sheepers.
Ever?
Cheapers.
No.
Anti-vax. Mr. Anti-vax.
And he died?
Yeah, he's dead. He no longer walks. There were 3 other guys, too. I don't have tape of all of them. And they're on the radio preaching this shit. I tell you what, as far as I remember, when I went to school, you had to get a measles vaccine, you had to get a mumps vaccine, there was a ton of them you got.
You still
polio.
have to. In order to go to school, you have to have certain vaccines.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Fuck them, fuck their freedom. I want my freedom to live. I want to get out of the house already. I want to go next door and play chess. I want to go take some pictures.
Yeah, so that was from a week and a half ago when he returned from vacation on Monday. Well, since then, he has doubled down on the mandatory vaccines. This one runs a little bit longer. This one runs 4 minutes, 16 seconds. Here we go, folks. The king of all media, Howard Stern.
When we first signed on Tuesday, I just went, I didn't even want to spend a lot of time on COVID and vaccination and all the heads in our country who won't get vaccinations. They're like, I don't want, you guys worship Dr. Fauci. Meanwhile, they go to the doctor and they'll take horse dewormer from a doctor. Like I heard Joe Rogan was saying, he says, what are you busting my balls?
I've got COVID,
He goes,
I'm
I
taking
took
a horse dewormer,
and a doctor gave it to me. I go, well, a doctor would also give you a vaccine, so why take horse dewormer? I don't know. So I was just saying, like, all the people who are anti-vaccination or or want their freedom. So I got on the air, and I even said to you, I won't dwell on this. I was like, what the make it all mandatory. Can you imagine in this country if, like, when polio was out, if we had these idiots who would not take the polio vaccine in our country? Everyone took the polio vaccine.
Everybody be on crutches or in an iron lung, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, it was a no-brainer. They had a cure. This guy came up with a cure for polio, and everybody just took it because you didn't want your kids getting it. You didn't want to get it.
He didn't want to give it to anybody.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, it's like we don't want to take this vaccine. It was always mandatory. When I went to school, measles, mumps, you name it, polio, you had to have a
took
slew.
whatever vaccines they had.
Yeah, because believe it or not, people used to die in mass from all this shit.
Or get some horrible lifelong condition.
Yeah, like you had to walk with a big shoe if you got polio, if you managed to survive it. And it was like a really cool thing that they got rid of it, and we could live longer without medical problems. But you notice in every single case when all this anti-science shit goes right out the window when people end up in the emergency room and they can't breathe, and then they go, I should have taken the vaccine. To every one of them. There's never been one that said, I'm so glad
I'm
that
done.
I refuse. Yeah, I'm so happy that I can't breathe. This is a wonderful way to die. It was worth it because I didn't take the vaccine.
That's right. I proved you all wrong.
But anyway, I woke up much to my shock that there was a bunch of people congratulating me, and then a lot of people in the media, like the Fox News types and even like Alex Jones, they were all attacking me personally. I'm Hollywood. I'm sitting in my house, but I'm Hollywood. I worship Dr. Fauci. They were like attacking me, but there were other people praising me. And all I said was, everyone should get the vaccine. It should be mandatory. And this brought down a slew of like publicity, like I haven't seen ever. Like it was
that
mind blowing.
Like an outrageous stand?
I mean, I was trying to figure it out. I said, why am I getting so much press for saying this? Is this really so wild? All I'm doing is speaking common sense. We have a cure for this dreaded COVID, and we're not taking it. Take it. Make people take it the same way we take polio vaccines and every other vaccine. We have it so good in this country, people forgot about disease. They forgot that there's cures and that it always wasn't like this. You don't get to live to 80 years old automatically. It's done with science. The reason we live longer, here it is. I'm going to blow your mind. I'm sure. I'll be prepared for the slew of press I'm going to get. The reason we live longer is because of science.
Well, that's pretty right on the money. The reason we live longer is because of science. Can't disagree there.
I have to disagree there because we're not living longer. We're living way less longer than the natives. They lived over 100 years on average.
Really?
Yes.
Is there proof of this? Because I
mean, are you going to ask the scientists?
Well,
but no, every book I've read that was written 150 years ago talks about them being over 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And that's not normal now. It's not something that happens very often. And lifespan is officially going down even since they've been recording over these last few years in America. So,
actually, lifespan's been going up. It went down last year because of COVID.
I think before that it was going down.
But before that, no, it wasn't. It was going up.
I'm going to double check right now.
Yeah.
So that we have specifics. But
yeah. But one thing here is you had mentioned while we were listening off air that there was vaccine hesitancy with polio. Well, not so fast on that one. I've got an article. This is Susan Brink writing for National Public Radio. This is dated May 3rd of this year. So this is a bit of a older article. The mass inoculation of millions of American children against polio in 1955, like the vaccinations of millions of American adults against COVID-19 in 2021, was a triumph of science. But the polio vaccine had overwhelming public acceptance while stubborn pockets of vaccine hesitancy persist across the United States for the COVID-19 vaccine. Why the difference? One reason historians say is that in 1955, many Americans had an especially deep respect for science. David M. Oshinsky, medical historian at the New York University and the author of Polio, An American Story, said, quote, "If you had to pick a moment as the high point of respect for scientific discovery, it would have been then. After World War II, you had antibiotics rolling off the production line for the first time. People believed infectious disease was being conquered. And then this amazing vaccine is announced. People couldn't get it fast enough. End of quote.
Okay, so the stories I'm reading, a lot of them that they did the trials in the beginning, polio vaccinations on, were scared of, number one, the fact that it was a shot. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. We're so used to them now. It's not a thing that people mention. But when they were first lining kids up for the trials, they were putting them in rooms way far away from the other kids. So if there was crying, they wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
Right? So there was definitely some pushback and a lot of questions. Now, the difference between now and then, in my opinion, is not the level of respect for science. It is the messaging from the media. 1,000% the messaging from the media. Now, with the polio vaccine, I'm reading an article right now, and it's discussing polio pioneers, see shades of the 50s and 60s in today's pandemic. And this was written in January of 2021 by Joe Brandt, published on NBC, Philadelphia. So what he was saying is basically when the kids, then the diseases were believed to have caused FDR's paralysis was spread through contaminated food or water. If someone infected with polio shows symptoms, they most commonly have a fever, pain, vomiting. A small percentage spread to central nervous system, leading to paralysis or death. Now, when they first started rolling this out, they were scared mostly of the needle part. They got through the trials. They approved the vaccine. And as they were doing that, they had a news conference where Dr. Thomas Francis announced that the Salk vaccine was safe, potent, and effective to the relief of millions of frightened parents who were scared their kids were going to get polio. Now, these 3 words were the headline on every newspaper in America, said Paul Offit, who heads the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He says the polio vaccination effort was warp speed 1. Doses were being manufactured before the trial was complete, allowing for larger supply than if manufacturers had waited. So basically, what I'm saying is that if you have a coordinated message spread across the entire globe, you're going to have a coordinated opinion. But when you have 2 different coordinated messages, and that's exactly what we're looking at, are 2 very coordinated, very opposite messages that are overlapping in parts, then you end up with what we have today. And it's really easy to say it's the stupid people, but it's not. It's being engineered, they're being steered, and they're easy to steer. Now, we have to be scared of that, and we have to find a way to steer them ourselves. And I just think that it's got to be a positive way, because otherwise we're just getting ready to kill ourselves off.
Yeah. Let me read you this statistic. According to the Centers for Disease Control, during the late 40s and early 50s, polio disabled an average of 35,000 people a year in the U.S., most of them children. There's a reason why we no longer see iron lungs. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you know how many people are still on iron lungs to this day?
Nobody, I would imagine.
4.
4?
Last
Okay.
time I checked, 4. Anybody else that has had those issues with polio that have affected their respiratory, they've got newer technology that's a little more mobile. Unfortunately, there are some people that, for whatever reason, that technology doesn't work for them, and they're stuck in an iron lung. And as a matter of fact, there was a story a couple of years ago that they're starting to run low on spare parts for iron lungs because they don't make them anymore. Why would they? We've eliminated polio.
Because polio wasn't profitable enough. There's a reason we haven't eliminated cancer yet.
Well, the thing is, we've eliminated polio. It's gone. It's gone.
It wasn't
Nobody
profitable
gets it.
enough.
Nobody gets it anymore.
I'm claiming, and this is a claim.
Smallpox, too.
Here's a claim based not on science. And I'm going to base it not on science because I don't think anybody's actually done science on this. If they have, I'd be interested in reading it. But I personally, it feels logical, knowing what I know and seeing what I've seen, that the oligarchs have maintained cancer to maintain a profit. They've eradicated polio for maybe, I don't know, to help them market the vaccine. These are wild claims I'm making right now. None of this is based on actual science.
And by the way, I'll stop and remind you, the Salk vaccine, not a dime was made off of that. That was donated to the public.
Exactly.
Yep.
So polio was not profitable at that point, especially.
So, yeah, very good point.
So this is where we're at now, and I'm looking at all of this with COVID. And like you said, they thought in the 50s they could conquer infectious disease. How do we know they couldn't have, and that the oligarchs didn't just take that away from us. And that's, maybe this is a wild claim. Maybe it's irresponsible and stupid. But should somebody be able to come investigate me or shut me up because of that? And I guess this is the big question we're all looking at right now, is how far do our civil rights go? Our human rights, our individual rights, before we cross over onto somebody else's? Where do we draw that line?
Yeah. I'm going to go back, the clip from Howard Stern, that wasn't all of it. I've got this story from Mediaite.com.
Mandatory vaccines? That's terrifying to me. That's terrifying.
Not to me. I'll tell you why.
How can you look at
I'll tell you why in a minute here.
Possibility for the good and not see.
I'll tell you why in a minute here. From the story, at another point, Stern tripled down on his lack of sympathy for imbeciles who have been hospitalized for COVID after refusing to get vaccinated. He also suggested that those people shouldn't even bother going to the hospital if that's what ends up happening. Here's what he said, quote,
that we can argue.
"We have no time for idiots in this country anymore. We don't want you. We want you to all either go to the hospital and stay home, die there with your COVID. Don't take the cure, but don't clog up our hospitals with your COVID when you finally get it. Stay home. Don't bother with science. It's too late. Go f*** yourselves. We just don't have time for you." End of quote.
I'm not okay with this attitude. It pisses me off.
Yeah.
As a mom, I cannot eradicate compassion for anybody. Like, I have tried to eliminate a level of compassion for some of the most evil people and things, and I can't do it completely.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of me that's human that wants everybody to be respected and have their humanity validated, okay? And it scares the hell out of me to hear good people laughing about other good people dying. Are they stupid? Possibly. Mm-hmm. But they were willing to die. They believed so much in what they were saying and fighting for. So it's not like they were trying to hurt somebody else. They believed they were helping people.
But here's the thing, is that they are hurting other people.
Yes, they are. But let's go to the people who convinced them they were helping people. Let's wish for their death. Because we can't just wipe out half the population because 5 people are steering them the wrong way. That's sick.
Here are these examples. This is Hadley Hitson writing for the Montgomery Observer. It was published, I believe they're part of the Gannett newspaper. This is dated September 10th. The family of a Coleman man who died of heart issues in Mississippi is asking people to get vaccinated for COVID after 43 hospitals across 3 states were unable to accept him because of full cardiac ICUs. Ray Martin Demonia died on September 1st in Meridian, Mississippi. He was 3 days shy of his 74th birthday and a well-known Coleman native, according to his family. He suffered a cardiac event. Emergency staff at Coleman Regional Medical Center had to bring him to the nearest available bed, which was nearly 200 miles away at Rush Foundation Hospital. In his obituary, Demonia's family urged people to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The obituary read, quote, "In honor of Ray, please get vaccinated if you have not, in an effort to free up resources for non-COVID related emergencies. He would not want any other family to go through what his did." End of quote.
He was a good person. Mm-hmm. That made a really bad decision and suffered and died for it. And if that's not punishment enough, I don't know what is. But what about his family that weren't bad people?
Well, no, he wasn't. He is an innocent victim.
Right.
Because he had a cardiac issue and couldn't get into the hospital.
Okay, but even
he got the vaccine. He couldn't get into the hospital for treatment of his cardiac issues because the beds were full.
I would argue that somebody who was convinced the vaccine was more dangerous than the disease is also a victim. If they're willing to die for that, I don't think they're going, I really want to kill other people so bad that I'm willing to die myself. Do you believe that's what they're thinking?
No, they're just being selfish. They're thinking of themselves, so they're not thinking of others.
I think they're thinking of both. I think they are, and they believe that this vaccine is more dangerous.
I don't see it, because you'd see vaccination rates go up when they see these stories about
if they were that
people
selfish,
that can't get into the fucking hospital bed. If they can't get into the goddamn hospital,
they don't think
what the is going to happen to them?
Exactly. They don't think it's going to be an issue because they don't think they're going to have to go to the hospital. They don't think they're going to get sick unless they take the vaccine. I get that doesn't make logical sense and it's not smart. But it's what half the people in this country are thinking right now because they've been convinced of it.
Half the people are stupid. Okay, but even if it's half the people that are thinking that, then why are they Goddamn, you can either open your eyes and see or keep them shut and stay blind.
No, you can either call people stupid or you can address why they're being misled.
Here's another example. This is ProPublica writing, this is Jenny Deem writing September 15th. What first struck Nathaniel Osborne when he and his wife took their son Seth to the emergency room this summer was how packed the waiting room was for a Wednesday at 1 p.m. The Florida hospital's emergency room was so crowded there weren't enough chairs for the family to all sit as they waited. And waited. Hours passed and 12-year-old Seth's condition worsened, his body quivering from the pain shooting across his lower belly. Osborne said his wife asked why it was taking so long to be seen. A nurse rolled her eyes and muttered, "COVID." Seth was finally diagnosed with appendicitis more than 6 hours after arriving at Cleveland Clinic Martin Health North Hospital in late July. Around midnight, he was taken by ambulance to a sister hospital about a half hour away that was better equipped to perform pediatric emergency surgery, his father said. But by the time the doctor operated in the early morning hours, Seth's appendix had burst, a potentially fatal complication. As the nation's hospitals fill and emergency rooms overflow with critically ill COVID-19 patients, it is the non-COVID-19 patients like Seth who have become collateral damage. They too need emergency care, but the sheer number of COVID-19 cases is crowding them out. Treatment has often been delayed as emergency rooms scramble to find a bed that may be hundreds of miles away. Some health officials now worry about looming ethical decisions. Last week, Idaho activated a crisis standard of care, which one official described as a last resort. It allows overwhelmed hospitals to ration care, including in rare cases, ventilator, breathing machines, or intensive care unit beds may need to be used for those who are most likely to survive, while patients who are not likely to survive may not be able to receive one. That's according to the state's website. And by the way, Idaho, the third lowest vaccine rate. They're in the 30 percentile.
These county officials, the county officials that are coming out and telling us to trust science, and they're so worried about human safety and health, and they're the same ones that have covered up poisoning our water for the last 50 years. I've read the documents. These are the people that worry about the county's liability. They worry about liability. When somebody writes them a letter and says, my dad died of cancer, I'm in the zone that's polluted, they're writing back going, oh, could you send me your address and this and that? And then they're running back and they're covering every base they can so she can't sue them. So I'm sorry, but science has become questionable because the scientists have become questionable. That's where we're at. When you're being appointed by somebody who is buying a political seat, it's questionable. And if we don't start asking these questions, if we make it okay for us to go, they're stupid and so they just deserve what they get or they should die, we're going to be in a really bad situation, and it's going to be so soon. Like, I'm so scared of this because if we don't go out and try to help these people, their families are watching them die, whether they decided to vaccinate or not. If they got to watch their dad die, and then they got to watch everybody call him an idiot, how is that going to get us all on board, even with the smart people? You know, like we have to find a way to suck it up and forgive these people for their idiocy. We have to save ourselves.
How do you educate them? How do you get through to them?
And that's what I don't understand. I don't know how to fix where we're at because these systems have taken over everything. Mm-hmm. The oligarchs own our education. They've de-educated them. They've defunded everything but police. So we should all be questioning what's happening here. The police are the same ones that own our properties, that own half of our manufacturing corporations. I mean, when you start looking at who's making money off of all of this, from the media down, and who is getting way better off and who's not, you're talking about 10 people, and they're all on the same team. So I can't keep playing into this. I can't.
Mm-hmm. Here's one way. I think it's going to have to come from people who get sick and know that they're dying.
Yes.
Here's an example. I have this story. This is Justin P. Hicks writing for MLive, dated September 10th. Dr. Nicole Linder has cared for countless COVID-19 patients throughout the pandemic. But one very special patient was on her mind as she spoke with reporters on Thursday, September 9th, about the need to get more Michiganders vaccinated. Linder, who serves as chief hospitalist for OSF St. Francis Hospital Medical Group in Escanaba, said she has cared for a patient named Kathy for the last 3 weeks who had refused the vaccine adamantly before contracting COVID-19. The woman voiced regret upon being admitted and spent her time in the hospital calling friends and family who, like her, had refused to be vaccinated. Linder said Kathy convinced at least 6 people to get the shot before her condition worsened and she was spent home to spend her final days in hospice care with her family.
Thank you. That literally just gave me hope because we need a solution like this. We need to find a way to organize this so that when people end up in this situation and they've got an hour, 2 hours, that they can use it to make their life mean something. And there are people, I'm really convinced that the majority of these people are good people and they're just not smart enough to see what they're doing.
Linder said, quote, "It was too late for her. Despite everything that could possibly be done for her, she's going to lose her battle and lose her life. And she's vivacious and gregarious and just a wonderful person, and this did not have to happen. Her family did not have to lose her."
Yes.
End of quote.
Yes, because that's it. It's not just her.
Linder shared her patient's story with her permission, but provided limited details. She hugged her and said goodbye earlier this week, noting that her death is imminent and she wanted to be at home with her family when she died, which, can you blame her?
Nope.
The Upper Peninsula doctor spoke Thursday about her experience with COVID-19 patients in recent months, the vast majority of whom have declined to get vaccinated and wound up seriously ill from a coronavirus infection.
So, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll let you finish this.
That's okay. In Delta County, where she works, 53% of residents had gotten a first shot as of September 8th. 57% were fully vaccinated. I think that's a typo there. I think it's 47. I'll double check that. Linder said, quote, "I'm fatigued and I am heartsick and I am tired of watching people suffer needlessly and die of a disease that could have been prevented by a simple and safe and effective vaccine. I don't want to watch my patients' families suffer with the grief of this and also the guilt if they played some role in their family member's decision not to be vaccinated." End of quote.
That's what this is. This is a coordinated effort for us to kill each other so they don't have to kill us. I'm sorry. It's so hard to read those stories.
One of the most common reasons she hears for why people didn't get vaccinated was because they, quote, "they don't want to inject some untested or foreign substance into their body." End of quote. But it's been tested. They've been working on this since 2002.
These people have been convinced through information campaigns that it wasn't tested. Whatever they're saying, they've been convinced of it. And I know maybe it wasn't based on what we would have, the level of vetting or, research that we would have put it at. They were convinced of it. Like, I have to ask you about Veronica Wolski. Were you a friend of hers on Facebook?
No.
Okay, Veronica Wolski was the woman who did Bernie's bridges back in Chicago during the entire Bernie campaign.
Okay.
She used to make banners. They were huge. She would stand on the bridge and people would honk. People would meet her on the bridge. She did this for 2 years. She was out there in blizzards. She was out there in the rain.
Jeez.
She was, the New York Times did stories on her. She was a huge Bernie supporter. It was so inspirational following her during the campaign. And when the People's Summit came in Chicago in 2017, I tried to meet up with her because I'd been following her and I wanted to actually meet her in person, and we wanted to go to Bernie's Bridge while we were out there. So a couple of the locals and I tried to meet up with her, and we never ended up meeting up with her. She was caught in traffic, and it was actually funny because her personality ended up being very, passionate but extreme. Like, she'd get angry very fast, she'd happy very fast. It was just fast changes. So it ended up being okay, I guess we'll just try next time, and we didn't end up meeting up. But shortly after the People's Summit, she got sucked into the information campaign. She became a huge Q person. She was pushing an anti-vaccine campaign for the last few months in Chicago.
Is this somebody separate from Linka K?
Yes, but they were friends.
Oh, wow.
Yes, all of us were Facebook friends, and this was all these. That's why they were targeted with this disinformation, because they were so influential. The software showed these people that were farming the data, that were collecting all this data, that these were the most influential people, so they came for them. And they knew their personality traits, so they knew that they were easy to...
Yeah.
And they got her. And she died this week. And it broke me because I've sat and watched so many people that I met through that campaign that inspired me, that were good people, celebrate her death. And I just can't convince myself that this woman who spent 2 years, hours, so much time and effort, trying so hard to get Bernie because she knew what we needed, I cannot convince myself that the world's better now that she's dead. And I cannot convince myself that she wanted to be sucked into that kind of insanity. I have to believe that she really thought that she was fighting to get the worm dewormer and they wouldn't, or the horse dewormer, and they wouldn't give it to her. And I believe she really thought it was going to save her life. And so to see her die, like, and to see people celebrating it, some of the most compassionate people I respect, like, I'm just not okay with this. This is not the world I want it to be. It's not what we visualized in 2016. And we're never going to get to a place close to that again if we normalize this stuff. Like, we have to find a way to find the empathy for the people that are dying, bring them back to the people that they are, and try to get something good out of this. But I think that's the only way, really, that we can have people see what's happening here, is to start at the end and move backwards.
Let me continue this story real quick. Dr. Linder continued, quote, I don't think that people realize that if they do become ill enough to be hospitalized, they're going to be injected with a lot of foreign substances, and most of them less proven than the COVID vaccine. I think people overestimate the effectiveness of the treatments that we have for COVID in comparison to the vaccine. Yep. End of quote.
Absolutely agree with that statement.
Linder noted that full vaccination leaves people with a 0.001% chance of dying from a breakthrough COVID-19 infection. That equates to 1 in 1,000 people. The available vaccines have gone through rigorous testing and offer significant protection against severe illness and disease from COVID-19. Pfizer's 2-dose vaccine has been granted full approval for use by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for individuals 16 and older. It's under emergency for 12 to 15.
And they're doing testing now on 5 to 11.
They're doing testing on 5 to 11. I believe they're now starting testing on younger.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah. It looks like they're going to be looking for emergency authorization for 5 to 11 sometime beginning of November, I believe. I believe the original date was around Halloween. They've now moved it back a little bit.
Right on.
Let's see. Additional vaccines by Moderna and Johnson & Johnson offer similar protection against severe COVID-19 illness and have received emergency use authorization following clinical trials and review by an independent advisory committee made up of vaccine and disease experts. Linder said, quote, the best treatment for COVID is to never get it in the first place. There really aren't any miracle cures, despite what some of the media figures have led the public to believe, end of quote.
And see, that's what they're doing. They're maximizing the treatments in the media and acting like they're super helpful and you'll be fine and COVID's no big deal. They're overplaying the dangers of the vaccine. And it's just all of those little things adding up to get just enough people to convince just enough other people. And there's a better way. I know there is a better way for us to work towards a better solution. But
let me read you this story. I'm hoping if this story will help people finally decide, hey, it's time to get it. This is Randy Wimbley and David Comer writing for WJBK television out of Detroit. Listen to this. This is a horrible story. 7 children are grieving the loss of their parents after both got infected by COVID-19. This couple was 44 years old, and they're now leaving behind 7 children. 7 children have now been orphaned between the ages of 10 and 23. Let me skip a little bit here. No one expected Troy and Charlotta Green's love story to end so tragically. The Detroit couple were thousands of miles apart when they died within hours of one another earlier this week. It all started in mid-August. The couple planned a family trip to Florida. Troy Charlotta stayed behind because he wasn't feeling well. She went to Florida. She fell ill and was hospitalized with COVID 2 days after arriving in Florida. He was taken to Sinai Grace Hospital a day later for COVID. They were both put on ventilators. They spent their anniversaries in the ICU several thousand miles apart. Troy's condition started to improve, but Charlotta's condition started to worsen. And they made the mistake of telling him that her condition was worsening. He started having chest pains and had a heart attack and died.
Oh, my goodness. No.
And then she passed several hours later from COVID.
Because he's probably so scared for his kids.
And I would say not even scared for the kids. I would say scared for his wife.
Yeah,
it's
but even
that too. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah. It
You
is,
know?
but I mean, yeah, you know, with your losing
know-
your wife is what do you do for your kids then?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because it's all
They need her.
intertwined.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all intertwined.
And we're all intertwined, which is really, I think, the point that we're making overall here, you know? Because whether or not they were victims, they leave behind victims.
Yeah.
You know?
And they were considering getting the vaccine, but they contracted the virus before they could get in.
And there's a lot of people that are, I've heard a month ago, were still considering. And I don't know if they are now. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got close family members that just got their second dose.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had time. They waited, you know, and I can't find a way to like draw a line between who I'm mad at and who I'm not. I just think I'm mad at the 10 people that are controlling us all right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Folks, it's time. It's time.
Save yourself, because this is how they're going to do it. They're going to convince enough people that the disease is dangerous, or that the disease is less dangerous than the vaccine, and that is going to take out everybody. And the only way to fix that has to be positive, because if it goes negative, we'll take out each other.
Yeah. And
it's either civil war or mass infectious disease. You know, if we don't find a middle path,
yeah,
save ourselves.
Now's the time. Now is the time. Not just for yourselves. This is for your loved ones.
Like beg, plead, and explain to them that they can't trust the sources they're believing right now any more than they can trust any other source. They have to look around, look into their heart, talk to people who have experienced it, and make a logical decision based on things they know to be true. That's it. That's all we can do.
Yeah. The reason I get so upset at him, I have somebody that I care about. Somebody who has been a guest on this show, has been a guest co-host on this show. Somebody I deeply care about. Through no fault of her own, has an autoimmune system issue. And she's gotten the vaccines, but they're less effective for her because of her
more dangerous
autoimmune.
For her if she gets it. And that's, for me, I feel it's every baby on the planet. They can't get a shot. They're counting on us to protect them.
I know.
So that's it. That's where I'm at too. I want everybody to be okay as much as the next person.
Yeah. This is why I get so angry and why I'm so animated about it.
We have to be angry, you know. We have to be able to talk to each other in anger. We have to be able to listen to each other in anger. And we just have to believe the things we know to be true, that we know to be true because we've lived them, you know?
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, I think we've spent enough time talking about COVID stuff. Can I get
over it?
Can I get you angry about something else instead?
I have a feeling it'll be incredibly simple. Oh, believe it or not.
Oh my God. I can't believe. No, I should be able to believe it. I can't believe they actually waited so soon to go ahead and start this up. We might as well play the music to go with it. Did you hear about this? Yeah. Yes, they are. They're bringing back cops. This is Jonathan Franklin writing for National Public Radio. This is dated September 13th. Following the murder of George Floyd last year, the Paramount Network abruptly canceled the law enforcement reality TV series Cops. Now the show has found a new home. Fox Nation, a subscription-based streaming service owned by Fox News Media, Fox Propaganda Media, has given the green light for the return of the controversial series, which will premiere its 33rd season on October 1st. That's according to a company announcement. Jason Klarman, the president of Fox Nation, said in a statement, quote, "Cops is one of the most iconic brands on television with an incredibly passionate fan base." End of quote.
He's talking about the cops themselves, I assume. Because nobody else likes that show.
Well, I'm sure there's people that are waiting to see their neighbor get arrested or something. I don't know. So, yeah, it's coming back, and yeah, you got to pay for it on a subscription service, but how soon is that going to go back to the Fox network?
Yeah. It's not going to take long.
The one thing I'm surprised they haven't brought back, and I'm stand by A&E for this one, they did not bring back their version of Cops.
What was that one?
What the hell is it called? Live PD.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now, where they would just, yeah. I can't stand hearing the scanner. Every time I even passed that channel on cable, it was horrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there's that.
Speaking of cops.
Yes.
Have you seen what happened, what is, I guess, still happening with the Whitmer kidnapping investigation and the officers who were involved in investigating?
Mm-hmm.
So apparently there have been a lot of criminal issues for the actual FBI agents who are running the investigation.
Yeah, the former lead agent, he's been removed.
Just recently.
Apparently, allegedly.
Oh, not allegedly. He was charged.
He was charged. Is he convicted? If he hasn't been convicted, it's
allegedly.
still
You're right.
allegedly.
I was thinking they did convict him, but no, he's charged.
Yeah. With
domestic
violence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lovely.
He apparently had taken his girlfriend to a swingers party. And when they got home, she was explaining that she did not enjoy herself, which to me sounds a lot less like a party and a lot more like another sexual assault.
You're coming with me to this.
Yeah.
More like
and now
forced.
After we get home and you're telling me that you didn't enjoy yourself, I'm going to bang your head on the headboard until you're almost unconscious. She ended up grabbing his scrotum.
Oh, lovely.
In which case he left and she called the police. Oh. And this was after he'd also made a comment, which I'm not sure if he was actually removed from the investigation because of the sexual assault or because of the comment he made referring to Donald Trump as a douchebag celebrity reality TV show host.
Well, he's got that one on the head.
That's true. But if you're that violent, you should not be investigating anybody.
Broken clock, correct twice a day. Once if you're Rick Perry. Oops. Oh, jeez. Can we actually end the show with a little bit of good news?
Please, you have some?
Yes, I do.
Way to hold on to it.
This is AJ Vicens writing for Mother Jones Magazine. This is dated September 15th. Epic, the domain registrar known for hosting far-right websites and social media services, was recently hacked. That is according to a release from someone claiming to be associated with the online collective known as Anonymous. As first reported Monday by journalist Stephen Monicelli, the hacker claims that, quote, a decade's worth of data from the company, end of quote, has been obtained, including all domain purchases, domain transfers, and unredacted website registration data that could shed the light on individuals and groups behind extremist and hate sites.
Ooh, that's really good news.
In announcing the attack, the hacker boasted, quote, this data set is all that's needed to trace actual ownership and management of the fascist side of the internet that has eluded researchers, activists, and, well, just about everybody. End of quote.
Thank you, Anonymous.
The company has called itself the Swiss Bank of Domains, with company CEO Rob Monster, gee, appropriate name there, right? Mm-hmm. Joking earlier this year to National Public Radio that he's the Lex Luthor of the internet.
Oh.
No, Luthor was smarter.
He didn't tell everybody he was Lex Luthor.
Yeah. In that story, Monster likened white supremacist leaders to shock jocks and claimed that while he does not personally think such content needed to be available to people on the internet, publishing it remained, quote, the decision of our client organizations, end of quote. Epic's clients include Gab, the social networking platform where a user boasted about targeting a Pittsburgh synagogue just before carrying out his deadly assault.
Oh, wow.
And Parler, whose links to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol got it booted by major tech providers.
I was crossing my toes for the last 5 minutes hoping you were going to say Parler. I want to bring those Mercers down. There's so much Mercer in this hack. I guarantee it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Emma Best, a key figure with DDoS Secrets, a web archive with a public interest mission of hosting hacked and leaked data, tweeted Tuesday morning that the site was working to obtain the materials and share them with researchers and journalists. The group says it is preparing 180 gigabytes of data from Epic, known for hosting fascist, white supremacist, and other right-wing content.
So the
that is a
Wagner
direct
group
quote.
is currently probably trying to kill a whole bunch of people.
In a separate tweet, Best noted the group's history with the hacked domain registrar, noting that Epic services, quote, were used to defame, stalk, and threaten DDoS Secrets members after the site hosted data obtained from Gab. She said, quote, Epic knew, Gab CEO knew, they all enabled it, end of quote. While the spokesperson for the company did not respond to a Mother Jones request for comment Tuesday afternoon, Gizmodo reported that a company spokesperson claimed Epic had mounted an investigation but was not aware of any breach. So it's possible they might have snuck in and snuck back out without them even realizing it.
I really, really, really hope something makes it to light of day.
God, wouldn't that be nice?
The forces behind this are the most dangerous on the planet. So it will be interesting to see if anything happens.
Monday's release announcing the hack called for support of Operation Jane, an online pro-abortion rights campaign that promotes flooding websites and tip lines with fake reports after Texas enacted an anti-abortion rights law soliciting citizens to identify anyone participating in or encouraging the procedure. An Epic subsidiary briefly provided support to a prominent tip site related to the new law, but cut virtually all services, with the company telling reporters such a site violated its terms of service. So, let's see. White supremacist propaganda, that's okay.
Okay.
Hate groups, okay. Reporting abortions, no, violated terms of service. Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of states working to copy Texas right now. And if we don't find some way to stop it,
yeah,
Handmaid's Tale is going to look like fun.
Yeah. Well, the best way to do it is what the women did in Poland. I actually said a few weeks ago, I didn't say this isn't what they did in Poland, but a few weeks ago I said women need to stop having sex with men in the state of Texas, period.
Oh, did you hear they were like talking about everybody on like shutting down their Tinders and Hinges and everything in Texas? Like just take yourself right off.
Yeah. Well, what the women in Poland did is they marched by the millions every day until this law was removed.
Well, and because their husbands need to clean laundry and food on the table, so eventually they had to go in and fix it.
Of course, because you expect men to do cleaning and cooking and anything like that. As a friend of mine told me earlier this week, Southern Indiana might as well be Kentucky. They expect women to be barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. So... She ain't wrong about Southern Indiana.
You don't want me barefoot, pregnant, or in your kitchen. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, gosh. Folks, we're out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Katie Steele.
For Jack Prince and Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.